Hello everyone, and welcome back to Let's Play Hearts of Iron 4, The New Order, with me, by Omega, an Empire of Japan. This is probably the first episode when I don't want to say black ice, so good for me, I guess. Good for me. Anyway, we're doing good. We're about 4 days away from July, so I'm interested in seeing what our economy is going to do. Internally, Japan is falling apart, or at least so we're being told. I don't see anything on the of the government or in the focus tree, but I feel that it might be coming at us with a bang. Also interested in something is going to happen with Madagascar, or if we screwed up by sending that little bit of help to the communists and now it's just over. I kind of screwed up with the communists and now it's just over. Well, we'll see. But the text has promised me quite a lot more content in regards to the Madagascar crisis. So we'll see. We'll see. Maybe something is coming. We've also ended the episode. Oh, nice. Okay, so we can review. We've also ended the episode by looking at an upgrade to our expeditionary force. They now have the attack helicopter company, air assault company, AFV recon, armored engineering company, and a logistics company. And we'll just add the motorized anti-tank as the next change, and then we are done with them for now. Divide, conquer, and repeat. If there ever was any hope in this crisis being resolved calmly and diplomatically, it's gone now. The common front entrusted with the information has completely collapsed upon itself. Governmental officials have fallen upon each other like a pack of starving rats, stalking and preying at night, sensing weakness in their brethren. The cultivated contacts from the police have been put to effect and now offer to help out all three agencies with their pursuits. The giant bureaucracies and entities controlling Japan will soon find themselves trapped by the rules they themselves made. The agencies have already hastily granted wide-open access to the police investigation team, quickly moving to secure all of the transcriptions. The hearings held themselves have resulted in the granting of access to the voluminous incendiary materials surrounding the agency's dealings with each other. As all three players smear each other with allegations and evidence, the hands of the puppet masters above will never be clean again. Let's see what kind of trouble they can get themselves into. Oh, I truly hope it's not going to be too much of a nightmare, but it might be. Okay, we finished one of our first I-660 submarines and an Omikaze destroyer. Pretty good. Okay, this corvette can be assigned back to the second Kantai, and you guys are still drilling, which is good, all is good when they are drilling. Our Navy is drilling, which is also fine. Tumbling down. Prime Minister Inohiroya implicated in making concessions in every 30 key areas of military autonomy. Deputy Ikeda Hayato recently resigned, proven to accepted hundreds of thousands in bribes. From Foreign Minister Fujiyama Adichiro to Security Minister Inukai Takeru, hundreds of more names from the army, from the navy, from the diet, all complicit, their desperate scramblings to prevent the outflow of information horrifically failing. The list of names only grows, and those who desire to be in the know now know. It is only a matter of time before the headlines of newspapers will blare with the cries of corruption, the picture ears hearing past our best efforts at censorship. The situation has become evident that any hope of controlling the damage has been forgotten. In the past, if the past could ever be forgotten, as the Zaibatsu begin to collapse and the cabinet reaches its end, it seems as if a new era for Japan is about to dawn, What's done is done. The government has let everyone and itself down. It all returns to nothing. And the Siberian Black Army has conquered the provisional government of Krasnoyarsk. Okay, so the Black Army is expanding. Magadan somehow still pushes Amur. I don't know how they're doing that, but they do. And it's 1st of July. More and more consumer goods is needed, but the economy is doing great. We have a surplus now of 4.26 billion. The debt servicing has dropped to 3.85 billion. Debt to GDP 94.6%. We're down to 255.38 billion. Things are looking pretty good. So let us hope that they will not collapse onto each other. But with what we are hearing about this crisis, I'm pretty sure that we might soon cry and use every little piece we have saved. So hold on, what's going on here? No, okay, so this one is dismissed. And the politicians knew. Things had been quiet for longer than they had been in weeks when a messenger appeared at the front of the department. His message was short and tersely delivered. The government would comply with the investigation to its fullest ability. He brought with him dozens of binders, each big enough to carry perhaps a year's worth of data. They were all quickly dropped off and the representative left. Tachi and Kodaira were quickly informed. They looked at each other for a moment, sharing a glance of simultaneous eagerness, fear, and confusion before quickly standing up and heading down to grab the binders. After a few trips back and forth to gather them all, they each grabbed the top binder from their stack and started to read. Both of the binders contained the same general kind of info. It was not pretty. All the transcripts were true. Paper after paper documented true staggering amounts of money flowing from the Navy and the Army into the accounts of politicians. The further they read, the higher profile the names became. Soon they were no longer truly reading the reports, just skimming them and noting every single name they came across. Not a single innocent person was mentioned from the front to the back. Kodaira picked up another binder, having already gotten through several, and started to read. This one was different, however. This did not document any suspicious transactions or politicians, at least not in the same way as the other. This was a full government-ordered report on the state of corruption. It had been chartered and viewed by the highest in the government, and then tossed aside. A single note at the end stated that the report was to be archived in high-clearance storage and forgotten for the security of Japan. No, for the security of the people running it. The rot sinks deeper. I think this is the foundation they mentioned we'll have time to fix later on. Well, now is later on, I guess. The accountants knew. Everybody was afraid now. The central board was riddled with notes of various fonts and styles, and the corridors of the rooms were trodden half to dust, but no one even dared to make small talk. The energy was channeled into work so frantic, it seemed like a burst of public madness. Talk veered and jolted between talk of leads and the next step and the next agency to find. Kodaira and Tachi found solace in their most recent routine. To properly conduct an accounting audit, an uninvolved neutral agency had to be found. They had devoted themselves to finding it. With a book of the most influential auditing agencies and accounting firms in Japan in hand, they holed themselves up in the rooms for a week, working their way past the streams of data. Slowly the rut began to unravel. The accountants involved had covered their tracks with exceeding competence, but certain irregular patterns were suspiciously similar to others, and if they could be proven to link to an accounting firm, the firm could be supposed to be compromised. The name of the firm was crossed out on the books, and the search would continue. Name by name, number by number, the anonymity of the accountants began to collapse, and the lists of the books grew shorter and shorter, and broke into pieces which shrunk and shrunk and shrunk again. One day Kodaira woke up early, as was his nature, and took a browse through the cross-written book in the hall. And then another, and another. He managed with great effort to keep from screaming. Instead, he sunk into his chair, half sobbing, to be found by worried Tachi. Every single name on the book had been crossed out. Oh my god. So everyone was in on it. Jesus Christ. Every single one of them was in on it. Okay. So wait, you are driving or what? No, you're not. Okay. So we can actually add you guys 2 more units. And you guys 2 more units now. And you guys 2 more units. And once they deploy, we are going to send you to drill. Wait, there's one more? Here. Okay, so you as well. So we have 4 carriers in this fleet, right? No, 5. So there has to be 1 more. Ah, okay, so this one doesn't have any. Okay, they all knew. Saejima Shinzo gave a brief resignation speech, showing no emotion and leaving as quickly as possible. He was found in the morning, dead for approximately 4 hours. He was on his side and keeled over into a shallow pool of his own blood. His hands still gripped the hilt of a very old and very expensive wakizashi, a centuries-old antique and one of his most prized possessions. His face was frozen in a sad frown, his eyes as empty dead as they had been when he announced his resignation. The police quickly rushed to inform his son, but they found him missing too. There was a brief panic until it was discovered that he had skipped town on a plane less than an hour after his father's body had officially been found. He was on his way to India, officially on business, in truth because the entire world was collapsing around him. There was little chance of catching him now, and even less reason in trying. Saejima Shinzo. Huh. I wonder who that is, Shinzo. Was that the leader of... Wait. Was that a leader of... Tsukichi Inohiroya? No. Okay, I don't know who this guy is. Shinzo. Just a few hours later, yet another heap of documents emerged. The Minezaka Corporation was now shown to have almost certainly assisted the government. Army and Navy with their operations. They had used their business expertise and many assets to shuffle money around, skim just enough for nobody to notice, and keep anyone who might object off the scent. They had even audited the vast majority of the accounts involved in order to keep suspicion at a minimum. Every level of power was now implicated with solid evidence. Hardly an innocent soul remained. But he who is without sin cast the first stone. Well, okay, we just gained a couple more production units. Okay, happy that we deployed on this navy. Now you guys will be the same, right? That's gonna be what? 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll need... Actually, we have enough for you as well. Right? Yeah, okay, so 2 of the fleets will now have full Air Force on them. So that's 160 aircraft on the second Kantai and 200 aircraft on the first Kantai. So did you guys get all of them now? Yep. So can you guys start drilling? I think they can. Yeah, they can. Okay. But the bodies hit the floor. Kodaira poured a glass of whiskey for himself and immediately drank it down before pouring himself another and offering one to Tachi. The younger one very well accepted. He had been avoiding alcohol as much as he could over the past days given the concentration needed for his work, but he just couldn't take it anymore. He took the glass with a mumbled thanks and savored the harsh flavor. The lesser-ranking officer poked in his head and delivered some more papers. Kodaira initially tried to decline, saying to just put it to the side so they could get to it in due time, but the officer said this was different. This just had to come from the Inokik itself. That got Kodaira to stand up and snatch the papers right from the officer's hand. He struggled to keep his eyes steady as they ran up and down the paper. He sighed and sat down before handing the tiny stack to Tachi. The younger detective read over them as well, then looked at Kodaira in shock. The Creek was now agreeing to cooperate with the investigation fully. Anything the team asked for, as long as it was relevant to the case, would be delivered. All they wanted in exchange was a guarantee of safety. The Ino Creek would be secure, and in return everything and everyone else would be fair game. Pour another glass. You are a fool. 102.5, 102.9, 106. The aging captain had figured it out, to the relief of his younger aides. The map laid out before him detailed the situation. Red was on the back foot after having lost the ridge and the surrounding hill. Defenses had already been established, and it was only a matter of time before Blue would achieve victory. Scribbles and thin arrows pinpointed potential weak spots, as thicker arrows planned out the finishing blow to Red. Just a little more, and they would win. Yet the captain was met now with silence, but instead with music. Yet the captain was met not with silence, but instead with music. What the hell is going on? He asked to no one in particular. The music being played was actually good, all things considered. The sounds of trumpet, the strong voice, and the fact it was upbeat all contributed to how good it was. Too bad it was interrupting his exercise. The captain turned the dial controlling the frequencies. All were playing the same music. He heard a snicker from his right as the voice sang. To the Japanese-born captain, the lyrics were unintelligible. To the aide, Taichu, the woman was calling the captain a fool. And what's the matter with you? The captain pointed to the aide, eyes narrowed. Nothing, sir. The aide stiffened, although his face betrayed him. The captain simply glared at him, gruffly telling the group to call off the exercise. The aides cleared out of the tent, with Taichu relieved that he was out of the captain's sight. He began humming the tune that had ruined the exercise, bobbing his head to the chorus. You are a fool, he imagined addressing the captain in private, finally airing his grievances. You are a fool, the song in his head continued. You are the cold man who does not know my mind. The Koreans are getting uppity, it seems. Good for them. So you guys, the Global Training Center. So you guys also have the Air Force ready, right? So let us drill these guys as well. We can't. We have to move you out of the port. And then we'll be able to. Okay, so you guys start drilling now. GDP is nearly 270 billion, that's really nice to see. We're saving a lot of political power here, which is also good. The verdict. Okay, here we go. We are gonna get the next phase of Japan next. The final hearings were miserable affairs. Each one was just hour after hour of details about the truly hideously astounding corrupt affairs of nearly every branch of the nation. After they were completed, the last pieces of evidence had finally been officially compiled and reviewed and were incorporated into the report. The report was titanic, large enough to make one wonder if every citizen in the empire was being accused. After a final day of nervous preparation and finalization, the report was released. By the next day, literally hundreds of arrest warrants had been issued. Diet members, cabinet ministers, politicians, businessmen, previous admirable figures, all were stopped and brought in as mere criminals. They were joined by a staggering amount of generals, admirals, and officers, both major and minor. A good number were yet to be captured, as they continued to trickle in as the fallout grew harsher. The Minezaka Corporation was on the absolute brink of collapse. The vast majority of its remaining leadership had been incarcerated, and what little remained was extraordinarily unprepared to deal with this. It was teetering and would be knocked over by a slight breeze or push, and this was more akin to a city-shredding hurricane. Every sign pointed to a collapse in consumer confidence. There was no coming back for the Minezaka Corporation. There was no coming back for anyone. The horizon glows with fire. Great, stability drops by 20%, but okay, well, we are at 100%, so we'll, we could change this 0.7, so we'll get there again. Political power minus 200. Okay, well, that sucks. We'll be at minus 137. The GDP growth will decrease by 4%. Oh dear God. Well, we still should have a limited growth. Decrease our GDP by 3.5% for a total of 9,439,000,000. Poverty rate will rapidly worsen. Administrative efficiency, societal development will begin to slowly worsen. Our credit rating will be downgraded. Remove sense of security, maximizing growth. The Yasuda crisis. Okay, so the interest rate is still not as terrible as it could be, and because we have actually pushed a lot about the economy, the debt to GDP is still below 100%, but it's now 98.1. The GDP dropped back to 260.27 billion, so we lost about, a year's worth of work here? And we still have a year with surplus, but only 2.75 billion now, which is 1% of the GDP, and our actual real GDP growth is now negative because of the inflation. Well, not great. So we could do a temporary tax cut. Well, I mean, we can because we don't have the political power, but military austerity would be great in this point. But we can because we don't have the political power again. Awesome. The Yasuda crisis. Following the release of information implicating Yasuda Holdings executive and ringleaders in a corruption scheme turned murder investigation, the Titanic Zaibatsu appears to be in dire straits. When the Tokyo Stock Exchange opened earlier this morning, the floors were flooded with frantic shareholders begging for their orders to be processed first and frightened interns carrying bins of sell orders through the chaos. Already, Yasuda's holdings have entered freefall, and the mass liquidation of assets held in the home island, Guangdong, Vietnam, and China has created an economic power vacuum set to tear the sphere economy apart. Experts predict that the Zaibatsu is on life support, and unless Ino's cabinet can be mobilized to produce a miracle, a total collapse of the corporation can be expected as soon as next week. What falls faster, a man or his shares? The Yasuda crisis. The men stood by the cell calmly and waited their turn to jump. A Tokyo Exchange secretary. Okay. But still no focus tree. Okay. Well, that's gonna change pretty quickly. Credit rating degraded, yeah. But okay, we're still exceptional. So the question is now what we can do with the real GDP growth. The inflation is... I mean, if I increased... No. Even if I increased our expenses significantly, it wouldn't help. We would lose the benefit of a year of surplus, and the economy will still shrink, so it's not like we can do anything in that regard. So we just have to weather the storm. However, we lost an insane amount of production units here. So back to 162. Oh, this is gonna look great in the 1964 review of the economy. Wait, what's going on? Why do we... In the name of love. That's what we need. In the name of love. At least fuel is getting better. At least we continue with the construction. Yeah, we're upgrading infrastructure. Building some prisons. Schools. What happened to the poverty rate, actually? 0.33. Yeah, negative GDP growth is increasing it quite dramatically. Well, what a great economy we had. It would be a shame if something had happened to it. In the name of love. For Jiang Ziggy, nothing could be better than sitting in her record store and listening to the merchandise as the city of Nanjing ambled on outside of her window. All the likes of businessmen, salesmen, and people just looking to get by passed her window. A growing pile of poems of the best prose she could muster stood tall on her desk, ready to collapse if the smallest breath touched it. Ziggy was hunched over the desk, calculating how many sales she would have to make to cover rent. Deep in thought, our train of thought was broken by the ringing of the chimes, and the paper tower collapsed. Too slow to react, Ziggy watched as the customer tried to save her stack of papers, only for it to fall over the floor. Looking up, she realized that a Japanese officer had just walked into her store. Face pale, she shot up. "Do you need any help, sir?" She cringed at her Japanese. "I'm so sorry for causing that mess. Do you need any help?" The officer seemed genuinely apologetic and embarrassed. Ziggy noted. In a few seconds, the stack had been reassembled, then divided into chunks to avoid an incident. "Do you happen to sell trot?" the officer asked anxiously. Ziggy walked over to a rack, filing through the record covers. "There should be some Linmi-ja here." She pointed to another rack. "There's Kim, Hieja, and Choisok-ja." The officer nodded, searching through the mass of covers. From the corner of her eye, Ziggy could see him pick out a few records as she picked out 10. She left the records on her desk, telling him to let her know when he was done. He came over a few seconds later, holding a bunch of records in his arms. "Is there any way you can package this?" he asked. "I'll pay extra." Ziggy nodded, producing a box from under the desk. She placed the records in the box. "That will be 500 yen. She got 550. As the man of the store, Ziggy stopped him. "Why did you buy trot records anyways? Aren't they illegal?" The officer raised an eyebrow, seemingly acknowledging her argument, and smiled fondly. "They're for my wife." Interesting. The Kautinazo. The Chilean powder keg has exploded. The Maltese were not the only ones who are deep in trouble. With Congress gridlocked on the issue of agrarian land reforms, a wave of vigilantism has begun in Chile's southern provinces as local peasant syndicates attempted to take matters into their own hands. Beginning in the Cautin area, the result is a domino effect of exploding tensions as extremist groups, armed syndicates, and local landowners backed by foreign mercenaries enter open battle, leaving local authorities helpless as the region turns into a frenzy of violence. Beaten by many tragedies and crises in recent years, the country seems to be hastily approaching an abyss. As the aftershocks rip through Chile, one thing is certain: any hopes that the Alexandria administration had of recovering national stability had been snuffed out for good. Is this what Alexandria will leave behind? The Siberian Bug Army declared war on the Principality of Kemerovo. Okay, so more fighting. Magadan is not advancing, at least that's good. We'll see what that will mean for us. And really, still nothing? Still nothing. Okay, we have to wait then. We have to wait. What's our score? Second Malagasy Uprising. That's a stalemate there. Okay, I guess we shouldn't have helped the communists. If we didn't, then the Free Philippine Republic declared war on the Second Philippine. The All Filipino Revolutionary Socialist Republic declared war on everyone. Cool. So our puppet state is in trouble. So that's gonna be the interesting thing for the next episode. The Blitz begins. First, a report were the outposts miles ahead of the front. Most were small and concealable, barely 2 stories tall and made of straw and nipa, connected to the rest of the world by old ham radios and signal fires. Most of the war they spotted movement without being spotted themselves, but this morning their greatest strength became their greatest weakness. Most fell silent before they could tell the army something was afoot. Next were the villages and barriers along the front. Any other day and the villagers would wake in the early hours to prepare for the harvest. Men with guns by the hundreds forestalled their daily routine as houses and fields were captured without a shot. Some runners they didn't notice enough to make for civilization. Third were the city outskirts, better defended than the backwater hovels of the provinces. It is here where armed men met other armed men and traded bullets and shells as the sun peaked above the horizon. Precincts received the outpost distress messages, and the village runners. Right as explosions claimed the lives of dozen constabularies. Death himself has roused the townsmen from their sleep. Last to receive them all was Manila, the peril of the Orient. From a distance, pillars of black smoke rose with the morning sun. Gunshots and explosions intertwined and formed hollow, echoing staccatos so far away, yet so close all the same. Only now did the army receive its reports. Positions overrun, casualties reported, barriers lost, and cities besieged from Pampanga to Negros. In the span of 4 hours, both rebel groups were less than 100 miles from Malacan Palace. The war's final phase begins in earnest. Yep. We get them over here and here and here. Java launches the Balwin Tabak Blitz. After years of seeming inactivity, an alliance between the Philippines' 2 largest rebel groups has commenced its largest attack against the Second Philippines Republic to date. Border towns are engulfed by gunfire and artillery shells as the joint anti-loyalist offensive shatters the conflict's long stalemate. Caught largely by surprise, the Philippine Constabulary and Japanese 14th Army have been forced to conduct fighting retreats and in some cases were routed off the battlefield completely. Questions about now that the conflict nears the peril of the Orient with every inch gained or ceded. Will the so-called Puppet Republic survive its ordeal? Will it fall? Who will fell it? The socialists in the north? Or the old Commonwealth remnants in the south? How will the Sun and Eagle respond? Time will tell. Cool, so that's a good note to end the episode. So, our entire empire is falling apart. We have no political power. Our economy is down in the dumps and shrinking. Yeah, things are okay. The only thing that hasn't changed is our debt, which I'm very thankful for. So the fact that we still managed to have a surplus, and that means we can continue lowering the real debt, is pretty good. So yeah, thank you very much for joining me. In the next episode we'll probably start fighting in the Philippines with hopes that we will survive it. But who knows? I don't.